Good evening, everyone. I would like to bring to order the July 20th, 2002 meeting of the Sandwich Conservation Commission. My name is Kimberly Walsh, and present tonight are Commissioners
Hillary Foglia,
Cameron Murphy, Roy Anderson.
Elizabeth DeMello.
We voted her in, so we don't need to appoint her as...
She needs to be appointed.
She does need to come on. Okay, I'd like to
Sorry.
appoint
I haven't
Elizabeth.
been able to generate the letter yet.
That's okay. DeMello as a full voting member tonight. Also, I'd like to designate Cam Murphy as timekeeper. Before we begin, I'd like to remind everyone of the format to be followed during all meetings. For hearings, the applicant will present for no more than 3 minutes, then take their seat. Then if present, opposing counsel or the other applicant will also have 3 minutes to speak, and they will sit down as well. Neither party will be heard from again unless they are asked a specific question by the board. There will be no crosstalk between opposing sides or members of the public. At no time during public comment or while the board is deliberating will the applicant or any representative comment, interject, or otherwise speak unless they are asked to by a board member. This just keeps a smooth running meeting. As to public comment, when you are recognized by the chair, please stand up and state your name and address for the record. You will have 1 to 2 minutes to state your comments. Please remember this is not a Q&A forum. Please direct your statements to the board only, not the applicant or anyone else present. If your comments mimic any prior comments, please simply state that you agree with the previous speaker or simply refrain from commenting. Once public comments are closed, neither the applicant nor the public is allowed to speak. For enforcement matters, the board will hear from staff first. If the homeowner is present, they may speak for 1 to 2 minutes, then sit down. Similarly, once public comment is closed, there will be no further comments made by the homeowner or the public unless specifically asked by a board member. Finally, I want to remind everyone that this commission is comprised of your neighbors who have given up their time to protect our town's natural resources. Our job is to ensure that the provisions of the Wetlands Protection Act, as well as the town's bylaws, are upheld. Again, as volunteers, we do this to the best of our ability, and we appreciate your understanding. Okay. Yes, John.
Chair, do you mind if I just make a quick announcement?
Absolutely.
Folks, I just want to let you know that the proceedings tonight are being broadcast live on Sandwich Television. This is a new development, but one where a lot of town boards are being broadcast now, and so Conservation Commission is just the latest to follow suit. So the recording goes on at 7 o'clock, and if you are a representative or property owner and you're speaking, or if you're offering public comment, I would just request that in addition to the usual procedures of stating your name, that you make your comments close to the microphone so that the audio can be picked up and be heard online. Thank you very much.
That go for us too.
And that goes for commissioners as well.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yes.
And one more thing just for the commission. I couldn't find the rolling file case, and that has the nameplates in it. So you don't have nameplates in front of you tonight. So if you can just state your name before you speak, that may be helpful to the public.
All right. This is still Kimberly Walsh. Okay, so I'd like to open DEP file number SE661948, Mark Rockwell, care of Sebacia, for notice of intent for the proposed addition to an existing single-family home at map 96, parcel 56, located at 266 Phillips Road in Sandwich.
Good evening. Oh, is that all right?
Make him come.
Make it come up one more. Hello. There we go. All right. Good evening, Madam Chair, fellow commissioners. My name's Corey Bracken with Sebacia. This is Ann McNevich. She is the architect doing the drawings for our proposal project at 266 Phillips Road. For our notice of intent, I'd like to begin with outlining the resource areas present on the site. We have a barrier beach system. We have a flood zone, AE 14. We're on the backside of a coastal dune on the interior of Phillips Road. And there is a bordering vegetated wetland that's off-site of the parcel with the 50 to 100 foot buffer zone on site. Going into the building itself, it's a single family home built in 1958. Looking at the pictures in the notice, you can see a second floor balcony that wraps around the front of the house. Around the east side and towards the rear, there's also a concrete slab patio on the rear side with an associated concrete walkway that wraps around the back towards a gravel seating area sort. There's also a patch of dune grass, and that is from a 2014 septic upgrade. And what we are proposing is a set of additions to replace the second floor deck, expanding the interior space. And what we plan on doing is keeping it on that second floor and raising it with timber piles, and also removing 475 square feet of that concrete hardscape. And we hope that by raising it, removing the hardscape, we're going to improve sediment transfer. As is right now, there's no intention of disturbing any natural vegetation. All of the areas that are proposed for work are going to be previously disturbed, either manicured lawns or, as I mentioned, the concrete. In terms of the natural heritage, there are no mapped wildlife areas present on the site. And the staging area that we're planning on using is at the front of the house. There's a gravel parkway that runs parallel to Phillips Road, and so we're going to use all our staging equipment out in the front there, not to mess up, get near the dune grass in the back. And we're not proposing any additional bedrooms. And the house as it stands right now is just shy of having a 1,300 square foot footprint, where improving and adding 763 square feet rather to the footprint, and removing that 475 square foot hard space area. You have anything you'd like to add in?
This is actually only an 18% increase.
Okay.
Can you, so that's what I was going to ask, was because on the architecturals, the existing square footage is higher than the proposed square footage. So should they be flipped, or is it a decrease, or am I just reading it wrong?
What happens there is it's habitable space. So I am taking a bedroom, I'm relocating a bedroom, and I'm adding a bathroom and a laundry area. So what happens is that's not habitable space. So that comes out of it.
Okay, I see. So the total, right, is decreasing. Habitable space is increasing.
Yeah, so you would end, the proposed is, I can't even read my own writing on this one.
It's at 913.
913.43, yeah. So it's because we are adding bathrooms and laundry areas, it actually takes away from the habitable space, okay? And enlarging the one that's already there.
Thank you.
It's a funny phenomenon in something so small.
Thank you for adding the existing residence on the plans. I appreciate that.
No problem. And of course, it's all pile foundation
Right.
above the
Right.
floodplain.
Commissioners, any questions for Ann or
Corey.
and Corey? I knew that. Or Corey.
I guess I have a question. It seems like you're going right up to the property line with the new addition. Is there no setback you have to follow?
I'm actually, the deck goes over the property line, and I'm pulling the addition back a couple of feet off the property line at that one point. It's at a funny angle, so obviously we can't go over the property line like it is, but we can go right up to whatever the setback is now. but I always pull it back a little bit for safety, a little error there.
So it is or it isn't right on the setback?
Pardon me?
So it is or it isn't right on the setback?
I pulled it back. So it's not as, it actually goes over the property line. I'm actually inside the property line now.
Okay.
So I improved the non-conforming issue.
Okay, so you pulled it back to the property line, okay.
Well, I pulled it inside the property line.
Inside the property line, okay.
What, sorry, this is Commissioner Cameron Murphy. What is the access for the construction machinery, like the pile driving equipment? Because the addition on the back side of the house is right up against the property line on the one side, and then on the other side, it looks like they'll either have to go over an area of existing dune grass, or...
No, what we'll do is there is a deck, on the left-hand side, there is a deck area. We'll demolish that, then we'll drive the machine up there, and then he has a separate hammer that actually puts them in, so he can drag the hammer around to the back, drive the back ones in, then back the machine out, and then put the ones on the side.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
So it's all going to be taking place on that side where the structure is close, super close to the property line.
Correct.
There's nothing, no machinery access or construction access going to be taking place on the other side.
No, we don't want to disturb anything we don't need to.
Okay. Thank you.
And I see, is there a work limit, sorry, this is Kimberly Walsh. Is there a work limit denoted on the plans?
On the site plan?
On the site plan?
Or is it just going straight to the property line?
Well, it would be just on that property line on that side. So nothing will occur whatsoever on the right-hand side.
Okay. Okay, so we can put that in the conditions too if we need to. All right.
So Roy Anderson, is the manicured lawn on their property, or are they cutting into the other property? And on 1 second, Josh, is that town property back across that line?
On the south side of the property?
Yeah.
I can't say offhand.
Yeah.
I think
need to look at the
somebody
GIS.
does the cutting for everybody back there.
Right. I'm not asking who's cutting it.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, is it cut across the line?
To people, because the other people want to cut. He doesn't do it, this particular owner.
I once again didn't ask who's cutting it. I just said, is it cut across the
It definitely
line
is.
that's not theirs?
It definitely is cut on the right-hand side. I can't remember on the left-hand side, because that's a vacant lot.
What about behind?
It's on the
This
picture.
is behind.
I think there are some pictures that show the backyard.
Yeah.
Cut. And is that into the property, which I think is actually town property, or from another discussion? I'm just wondering whether or not if they're cutting into town property
Into
or
town.
in the back, and would want to make sure that's not happening going forward.
Well, we could have the surveyor, we can stake out the back property line.
Right.
And then that could be remedied.
That's what I'm asking.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And that pathway on the left, if you're facing the house, there's a pathway, sorry, Kimberly Walsh, on the left-hand side. Is that staying? It's with the steps? Is that staying? The cement steps?
Neighbors.
Thank you.
There's a door below. This is actually a two-family. There's a door below where that deck is, and I think there's some gravel that takes you around underneath the existing deck and
This one right here.
takes you to the driveway.
That one?
I believe that's it, because
Yeah.
I think the entrance to that downstairs apartment is
Right there,
Is
yes.
right
Is
there
that-
with the little bench and the gravel.
Okay, so that's,
They would go that way to access the beach.
okay.
So they have to,
So here it is in the front, right? So that takes them to the beach?
yes. It
No,
takes them to
across-
the street,
To
and
the
then they
street.
cross
Right,
over
right,
to
okay.
go to the beach.
Okay.
Is that something we would want to condition the removal of?
Right, that's what I was thinking.
Those pavers?
Just,
It's technically would be hardscape.
Mhm.
would you allow them to use the stone that,
The driveway
Yeah,
stuff?
the
Three-quarter inch.
3/4 inch stone.
Yes, yes,
Yeah,
Absolutely.
That would be totally compliant.
right.
It's still a path. They would want to keep a path,
Yeah.
but just get rid of the hardscape and put in the stone.
And Corey, sorry, this is Cameron Murphy again. Corey, you had mentioned that the hardscape underneath the deck right now, that concrete slab, that's getting removed?
Correct. All the concrete that's poured there.
Yep.
There's the bigger patio slab in the back, and then there's like a little
Yeah.
adjoining sidewalk that's coming out.
Okay, good.
Okay. Anything else?
And then Hillary Foglia, I would want to just add that standard special condition about planting beach grass,
Yes.
12 inches on center in disturbed areas.
Right, I agree.
Yeah, I'm not sure there will be disturbed areas because we'll be going where the building is above.
Even for staging or anything like that.
They had proposed
Can't
this.
hurt to throw it in there.
Yeah, I can't, yeah, if there is disturbed area, then, yeah. Okay.
Are we satisfied?
Yep.
Okay, I will make a motion to, oh, sorry.
Is there public comment on this filing? No? Okay,
Wait,
public comment
Is
is,
that public?
There is a written.
there is a public, okay, forgive me. Okay, this is a letter from Mark and Galen Riley from 265 Phillips Road. This is dated July 12th, and it says, "Dear Conservation Commission members, we are writing in reference to the notice of intent application for the above referenced property. We are abutters who live at 265 Phillips Road, directly across the street from the property in question. We are not able to attend the hearing on this proposal on July 20th, 2022. Please accept this letter of support in lieu of an in-person testimony. We have had an opportunity to review the proposed plans for 266 Phillips Road. We strongly support the plans. Mr. Rockwall's plans to make additions and remodel the property will be an enhancement to the property itself. Moreover, the remodeled home will be a better fit in the neighborhood post-construction. The remodeled home will keep with the character and design of the homes in the neighborhood. If you have any questions, we are happy to further discuss our support of this project. We may be reached at," I'm not going to give their phone number out. Sincerely, Mark and Galen Riley. Any other public comment? No, okay. Public comment will be closed. I'll take a motion if you.
Okay. This is Cameron Murphy. I'll make a motion to close and approve DEP file number SE 66-1948, Mark Rockwall, care of Sebacia Inc., for the proposed additions to an existing single-family home at map 96, parcel 056 at 266 Phillips Road in Sandwich, Mass., with standard and special conditions as discussed.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Bye.
Any opposed? Okay, so moved.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
guys. Good night. Okay. Our next hearing is DEP file number SE 66, 1945, Paul Jobert, trustee, care of Bracken Engineering, for a notice of intent for a proposed new septic system at map 89, parcel 105, located at 1 Bay Beach Lane in Sandwich. Hi there, and who do we have for the applicant?
Sure. Good evening tonight. My name is Rob DeWar, here with Bracken Engineering, on behalf of the applicants Paul and Beverly. Just as a point of order, I know we sent digital copies of the green cards. Are you still collecting hard copies? Paul, Josh, do you want hard copies of the green cards?
Yes, please. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
So tonight we have a project here at 1 Bay Beach Lane. This is for the upgrade of an existing septic system which is currently in failure. We have a 30,013 square foot lot located on the north side of Bay Beach Lane. To the northeast, we have Cape Cod Bay and a coastal dune. The developed area of the site lies on the back side of the coastal dune. To the southwest, we also have an isolated vegetated wetland. Currently, the property is developed. There is an existing single-family home on there. It is 3 bedrooms, serviced by a a septic system now that currently lies within the coastal dune. It is our intent, as part of this project, that that be abandoned in place. Just as a point of order, there is conflicting information in the narrative. It states that the septic field, the leaching field, will be abandoned and the tank will be removed. It is our intention to abandon the tank in place as well. It is our thought that because it lies partially under the existing deck, that it's going to cause far more disturbance to the coastal dune and the resource areas around it, rather than just abandoning it in place for now. If ongoing erosion of the dune does expose the tank at a later date, we will be back in front of the commission to remove that at that time. That being said, right now we plan on just abandoning it in place. We would carry a new trench around the side of the house to a new 1,500-gallon septic tank, to a 1,000-gallon pump chamber, and that will be pumped around to the front of the house where a new soil absorption system will be located. We've located it in this area basically to maximize distance from the coastal dune and the isolated vegetated wetland on the other side of the street. As well, at this time, we are also maximizing our separation of groundwater. At the time of our own perk test, we noticed weeping at approximately elevation 4.8. To use a more conservative number, we went back to the perk test that was done by Mike Berselli here at the abutting property at number 3, Bay Beach Lane. That elevated it up about another 0.7 to elevation 5.5. So we went by that as the just a more conservative groundwater elevation, and we're still meeting well above our required separation there. So with that all said, I would like to open it up to any questions from the commission.
Thank you so much, Mr. Moore. Commissioners?
Did you say this is Cameron Murphy, did you say one of the decks was going to be removed to conduct the work and then replaced?
Yeah, so originally, I believe in the narrative, it does state that this existing deck towards the rear would be removed to allow the removal of that septic tank. If we can allow that to remain and just work around that deck and just allow that tank to be filled, they can hand trench under there rather than having to remove all that and reset that deck and just cause all that disturbance there.
What are the benefits of, this is Kimberly Walsh, of like the pros and cons between removing it and not removing it? Is just the disturbance? Is that?
Yeah, correct. It's just the disturbance of it right now. When you abandon it, all that has to happen is that sometimes it is crushed. Otherwise, they can just puncture if the contractor can just drill inside so the water doesn't collect, and then it's just filled with clean sand.
Okay.
Is it still exposed, or has it been renourished over?
I believe the field has been renourished over as part of that erosion control there, or the erosion stabilization.
This is Roy Anderson. So erosion obviously is a huge issue in that space.
Mm-hmm.
You say if erosion does occur, you're going to have to go back in and then take the tank out.
Correct.
It would, I would suggest, would anticipate that it's a lot easier, more efficient, and better for the dune if it's taken out now.
Well, I mean, if the erosion is coming up and exposing the tank, because right now the tank wasn't exposed, I know the portions of the field were. That we're going to be dealing with the erosion of that existing deck and the structural elements of that as well. So that will all have to be addressed at that time. Let me just pick this up.
I'm pretty sure that when we had that storm over the winter, that tank was exposed. Right?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry, I saw pictures of the field. I did not see any pictures of the tank exposed.
Which means it's likely to become more exposed with the next storm.
It's almost a guarantee, though there are no guarantees in the world. But
It is something we, as a firm, went back and forth on quite a bit, whether to leave it or pull it out.
Personally, I would prefer to see it come out, just because even in its abandoned form, it does prevent a bit of a barrier to the natural migration of the dune. And I think that we might be just forestalling the inevitable, and we'd probably prefer to have all of the disturbance occur at one time, you know, rather than breaking it up and having to go back in down the road to get that tank out. But it's also full of sand and probably significantly heavier.
That's a good point. So we'd be giving up the disturbance piece
Right.
to have it all done at one time, yeah. Okay.
Okay.
We're amenable to that.
Josh?
Madam Chair, Sandwich Television just requested that, Rob, you take the site plan and I guess turn it around. Maybe you don't have to even use the easel, but I don't know if they can zoom in or something. I'm not sure if this will actually work, but they have requested it, so
I thought it was
thank you
because
for
I was
obliging them.
completely hidden.
I don't know how long it has to stay there,
Yeah.
but
That's all right. I mean,
Sure, that's fine. We
Yeah.
have it here.
Okay, yeah.
So on another point, Roy Anderson again, could you explain the leaching field? What is it? What's
Sure.
there? What's going to happen to it?
is this for the existing leaching field? The existing leaching field right now, for the abandonment process, not much happens to it. For the septic tank, that gets filled with sand. For the leaching field, that also just gets filled with sand as much as possible. And that's about it. And
What
it's
about
left in place.
the contaminated material?
It gets pumped prior to that, and then filled, so.
Are you good? Do you mind if I?
No, Hillary, please.
You mentioned that Hillary Foglia, you mentioned that the leach field is exposed.
It was at one time. They have been doing they've been remedying the erosion there. There are some work with the coir envelopes that are there to fix those, so it's no longer exposed.
I'm wondering if we want all that removed as well.
The whole kit and caboodle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't see why we wouldn't if it's gonna get, if it's exposed or going to be exposed again like the,
Right. Right. You said you're Kimberly Walsh. You said that you had gone back and forth with the members of your team.
On the tank, yeah, with the ongoing erosion stabilization that's there, we're confident about leaving the field in place. And that was just, especially with the field, a significant impact to rip all that up to the dune.
Okay. And what's the new leaching chamber, the material in the new leaching chamber?
The new leaching chambers, it's 4 concrete, they call them LC6 chambers. They're generally 3 feet wide by 6 feet long, and that sits in a 11-foot wide by 30-foot long trench, I feel.
I was more concerned with the material.
Yep.
It's
So it's concrete chambers and then surrounded by stone.
And that's on the street side of the house, right?
That would be on the street side of the house, underneath the existing lawn. And some landscaped areas, I believe, but disturbed area.
Are concrete leaching chambers allowed in that area? Are they supposed to be stone and?
It's something that has been done. I mean, just 5 years ago, the system that was put in next door at Bay Beach Lane was also, that was the larger concrete chambers, the 500 gallons. Those are about 8 feet long by 4 feet 10 inches wide.
Okay.
Josh, can I ask a
Yes.
question of staff?
Yeah.
Is it correct to say that the work taking place on the front of the house to include the soil absorption system is outside of what is technically the coastal dune? It's in the buffer to the coastal dune.
still within 100 feet, which is still protected under the regulations, and so the regulations for the coastal dune would apply to that area. I would just like to quickly point out that the commission has not permitted concrete leaching chambers within coastal dune. I don't know about 3 Bay
Well,
Beach, but
However, I understand that within 100 feet of the coastal dune, the regulations apply as such that you are in the coastal dune. In the case here, we are outside the actual dune itself and on the landward side of the structure, so there's going to be minimal, if any, sand movement within that area.
I appreciate that, but also it is still part of the coastal dune, and usually the proposals for those leach fields are pipe and stone. Why is that not an option at this point?
We find that when available, the concrete chambers and the stone provide the best treatment, the longest lasting system. It's most economical in the long term for the homeowners. And it provides the best treatment. So.
The Board of Health already reviewed this plan?
Nope, this has not gone in front of the Board of Health. We wanted to come here first to just confirm all the resource areas.
I would caution the commission about permitting the use of concrete leaching chambers in coastal dune.
Because we wouldn't want to set a precedent. This is Roy Anderson. Is that correct, Josh?
No, it's not about a precedent. It's about paying attention to the performance standards of the coastal dune.
Understood.
I would agree with the statement made by staff in that, we need to uphold the performance standard of the coastal dune to the letter, even as applied to the buffer. So I would also prefer to see a pipe and stone soil absorption system if it would be something that could be revised.
I agree.
Yeah, and there's also under the special conditions, there's a requirement that it be certified by the appropriate health agent from the Board of Health as well. I'd like to put that in the special conditions if we do move forward on that.
So what do you need to talk to your clients?
Yeah. Well, if we're going to,
Do we need a plan revision for something like this before we can approve, or?
I would think so.
Yes.
Yeah, I would think so.
It's significant enough change.
Yes, right.
okay.
Okay, so on that plan also, if there's any lawn to be disturbed, if we could add to the plan that would be replaced with natural landscape, beach grass, what have you.
In existing lawn, you're saying?
In disturbed existing.
Okay.
So if that becomes disturbed, that we go back to natural. And so if those things are, anything else for the, is there any?
Want the existing tank removed?
Yes.
Yes, as we discussed, right. And leaching field.
I would like that. I don't know how anybody else feels about that.
I agree, Hillary.
Yeah.
Is the existing leaching field similar concrete chambers as what's being proposed?
No, it is not. I believe it's a pipe field.
Pipe and
Yep.
stone. So, just so I understand the architecture of the leaching field, it's some kind of a small-ish, like basically a hole that's been filled with stone, in the simplest of terms, with pipes running into it from the
Yeah.
existing tank.
Maybe just the pipes be removed.
Yeah, if basically if any non-natural material could be removed, the piping, underground piping could be pulled out.
Okay, yeah.
Stone is generally acceptable anyway, so.
I mean, yeah, we'll have to review that with the owner and the contractor as well. Yep. All right, well, in this juncture, I'd like to request a continuance.
Okay, that'd be great. First, we may ask if there's any public comment regarding this filing? No? Okay, close public comment. All right. So,
Is there a date that you would like to request a continuance to?
Likely the next available hearing, that would be,
August 3rd, I think?
yes, I believe so. Okay, so we'll make a motion to continue. Okay.
I'll make a motion to continue DEP file number SE 66-1945, Paul G. Jobert, trustee, care of Bracken Engineering, for the notice of intent for a proposed new septic system at map 89 parcel 105 located at 1 Bay Beach Lane in Sandwich to the August 3rd, 2022 meeting of the Sandwich Conservation Commission.
Roy Anderson, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so moved.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it. Yes, Josh?
Did you do public comment?
Yes.
Okay, so next up we have DEP, file number SC 661946, Denise Dever, care of Down Cape Engineering, for notice of intent for a proposed septic system upgrade at map 82, parcel 84, located at 125 Route 6A in Sandwich. And who do we have presenting? Hi.
Good evening, Chair, members of the Commission. For the record, my name is Daniel Ojala. I'm a professional engineer and also a professional land surveyor, and I work, or the principal of Down Cape Engineering in Yarmouth Port. One of my engineers, Danny Gonzalez, worked principally on this project. It's a very straightforward matter. This is what we'd call a flood zone only project, so there's no wetlands within 100 feet of the property, and it's simply making a tough situation better. This is a septic system upgrade. So we took a look at what's there now. There's some small pits out front in order to bring it up to current standards, or what we call maximum feasible compliance, as good as you can do with what you have. We raised up the system to generate a full 5-foot separation of groundwater. That did require a proposed breakout wall around the system, and it is in the paved area, but luckily there's enough parking around it. We feel it'll still function even with a modern system to elevate that grade up. This perhaps could have come in as an RDA, but I think a careful reading of the Wetlands Protection Act, if you're working in a resource area like a flood zone, probably a notice is more prudent, so we did bring it in under that. So you can condition it as required. It does not enjoy an exemption with a notice from the stormwater, so we went through the stormwater management guidelines and prepared a report on that as well. But again, it's simply just a little upgrade on a small building on a tiny lot in a flood zone, but not proximate to any other wetlands. There will be in front of the Board of Health for a few little variances, distances to this and that, and lateral removal, some things like that. But we do meet the proper setbacks to some adjacent drainage systems, and we feel it'll protect the environment very well. I'd be glad to answer any questions if you have them.
Thank you so much, Danny. Appreciate
Could
it.
you now turn that to the camera, please?
Commissioners? Yeah, this is one's straightforward. Yeah. Is there any public comment on this filing? No? Okay, I'll close public comment. Got it right here. Okay. Thank you for your thoroughness in submitting it as an NOI as opposed to an RE. I appreciate that. I will take a motion if you guys are comfortable.
Sure. Ready? All right, I'll do it.
You're good.
I'll make a motion to close and approve DEP file number SE 66-1946, Denise Dever, care of Down Cape Engineering Incorporated, for the notice of intent for a proposed septic system upgrade at map 82, parcel 84 at 125 Route 6A, Sandwich, Mass. Standard and special conditions as discussed.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, great, so moved. Thank you very much.
Your time.
Thank you.
Okay.
Sorry, who's second?
Elizabeth. Okay, now we're moving on to continued hearings. This is Kimberly Walsh again. I would like to open DEP file number SE 66-1936, Donald Dawson, care of Environmental Consulting and Restoration, LLC, for an after-the-fact notice of intent for driveway expansion and an elevated viewing platform at Mount 96, parcel 45, located at 255 Phillips Road. Do we have anybody presenting? It is, yes, that's what I'm about to. Okay, thank you. Okay, we have an email from Cameron Larson to Rachel and Josh and Michelle. Hi, Michelle. Sorry for the confusion regarding the 255 Phillips Road hearing on July 6th. Please consider this a formal request to continue the hearing to the August 3rd meeting The applicant is working to obtain the structural plans requested by the commission and expects to have those prior to the August 3rd meeting. Thank you and have a nice weekend. Okay,
Okay.
that's pretty
Make a
much.
motion?
Yeah.
I'll make a motion to continue to EP file number SE 66-1936, Donald Dawson Care of Environmental Consulting and Restoration LLC, for the after-the-fact notice of intent for driveway expansion and an elevated viewing platform at map 96, parcel 45, located at 255 Phillips Road, to the August 3rd, 2022 meeting of Sandwich Conservation Commission.
I second.
All in favor? Any opposed? So moved. Thank you. Okay. Next, I'd like to open file number SE 66-1929, Brian Hebb, care of Shorefront Consulting, for a notice of intent for the raise and rebuild of a single-family home at Assessor's Map 95, Parcel 3 and 4, located at 295 and 297 Phillips Road in Sandwich. Hi.
Good evening, Madam Chairman, members of the Commission, staff. For the record, my name is Brian Wall. I'm an attorney here in Sandwich, and we're here to have a continued hearing on this matter. The Commission might recall that at the close of the last hearing, there seemed to be, at least in our view, there were 3 issues that needed clarification and or more information. And the first one was confirming the applicable side yard setback insofar as zoning was concerned. Second, there was several commissioners wanted to hear more information about impacts to the dune and compliance with performance standards. And third, there was, I think the majority of the commission, if not everyone, wanted to see the house move further to the east, which is towards the neighbor next door. So we requested a continuance in order to address these matters. And very briefly, I discussed the matter of the setbacks with the building commissioner. And after discussing it and reviewing the zoning bylaw, I concluded and he agreed that the applicable setbacks are 25 feet. I think Mr. Hebb had come in and said they were 30 to begin with, and there was some discussion about they might be 20, but they're 25 feet, and there's a letter in the file from the building commissioner confirming that. What the applicant did after hearing those concerns was to hire some other experts, and you're going to hear tonight from a coastal geologist named Sterling Wall, to my left, and also Jen Crawford from Crawford Land Management to my right, and also Mark Burgess. And just briefly, I'm going to outline, and I understand the commission wants everything to move along, and we're very well prepared, and this is not going to take very long, despite what I'm saying. So first of all, Mark Burgess is going to tell you that the house has been moved further to the east. Sterling Wall is going to address impacts to the dune, CZM requirements, and performance standards. Jen is going to talk about a mitigation planting plan. And I would respectfully submit that when you hear all of this, we think that we will have provided you the information that you were looking for the last time. And I think that you'll be comfortable, at least I hope you'll be comfortable, deciding that this project is at a point where it can be approved. So having said that, I'll turn it over briefly to Mark about the house location, and then Sterling, and then Jen.
Thank you.
I can sum it up in about 10 seconds. So the revised plan simply shows that the house has been moved to the 25-foot setback. Remember, it started at 24.75 with the original house, and then we looked into moving it closer, but we can't, so it's at 25. That's the revised plan that you have. That's the only change that was made to the site plan. That's all I have.
Thank you.
For the record, my name is Sterling Wall. I have over 44 years of experience as a coastal geologist here in the Massachusetts coast and in the areas on Cape Cod. I was brought into the project to evaluate it and see what opportunities there were to make the project better, less impacting on the dune. The first thing was with respect to the existing building footprint and not moving it any closer to 293. And that is important to not disturb that area between the two buildings, but also not to move the buildings too close together to avoid wave and wind scour by placing structures too close. And I think, reoccupying the additional or the existing building footprint will maintain that distance and contribute to reduction of scour if there's wind or wave damage that would flow through that area under an extreme storm condition. In addition, I look for opportunities to make the project better using both the FEMA construction manual, coastal construction manual, as well as looking at the Mass CZM guidelines. And we've been able to do that. The project will be fully elevated on deep embedded piles. The structure will be built above the pile framework, and it will provide for a greater amount of what we call freeboard above the flood zone elevation of 16, such that the first floor elevation will now be 26.5 feet. We're moving all the utilities up to that level so that they are all flood-proofed. And then we are removing the driveway area, and then the process for embedding the piles will be we're going to remove the landward side of the foundation, bring the drill rig in located on the basement floor, and the drill rig will work off of the basement floor to drive the piles in their respective locations so that it does not have to venture out onto the dune form itself. By doing that, we do not disturb the dune form, and we reduce the amount of vegetation that is potentially disturbed. Finally, we are relying on a very well-prepared revegetation plan that will be presented to you by Jan Crawford, and the net result of all of this is that we meet all the requirements for working within a disturbed coastal dune. We meet all the requirements with respect to not causing any landward or lateral movement of sand in a way that would not naturally take place, and that we are not changing the dune form itself. At this point, the revegetation plan is probably a major issue in your thoughts, so Jen Crawford will take over.
If I could, it's Roy Anderson, just a quick question. Appreciate your years of experience and knowledge. I believe what you just stated was all the things that they had already put into the plan. Was there anything net new that you brought?
Net new is the deep embedded piles, okay? And
That wasn't the case earlier? That was a net new input?
well, it's specifically stated now, okay? And number one. And number two, they had not proposed to construct off of the existing garage basement floor. They were going to remove all the walls and all the garage flooring first, and then venture in with the equipment. And by sort of reversing that process, we go in with the equipment and then we back out, and then removing the walls and the floor.
All right. Thank you very much.
Just flip this over. Good evening. For the record, Jen Crawford from Crawford Land Management. I don't know if many of you are familiar with our company. We're actually located here in Sandwich, but we specialize in ecological restoration work as well as coastal shoreline stabilization work. We're both consultants and contractors, so we come at these projects from a practical side, being able to actually perform the work that we're telling you that we feel is best for the project. So with that being said, we were asked to take a look at the project to provide more information to you on the types of vegetation that were going to be disturbed within the limit of work, as well as the project site as a whole. So the notable things within the limit of work as we completed our site observations were two species that are a little bit more uncommon. They're not rare, and they're not anything that's critically imperiled, but they are a little bit more uncommon. Those two notable species were sickle-leaved golden aster, Pityopsis fulcata, as well as Hudsonia tomentosa. So both of these species we feel are valuable to this dune community, and we feel that they would be easily transplanted outside of the limit of work into an area that will have no disturbance, as well as 5 juvenile eastern red cedar.
These small eastern red cedar are clearly acclimated to the site and can be moved by hand without any sort of additional disturbance from equipment in order to complete those transplants. With the sickle-leaved aster and the Hudsonia tomentosa, these are two species, and one of the reasons they're notable is that they are unavailable in the nursery trade. So in terms of restoring coastal dunes, many of the species that are common to coastal dunes are available for purchase and for installation. These two species are not. Therefore, I think that there is a lot of value in being able to move them by hand with little to no disturbance to outside areas and to be able to help them continue upon their growth in the dune. So those are some of the notable things in terms of vegetation. With our mitigation plan, we provide much more detail than the original plan submitted to you. From a distance, the area in gray around the proposed house shows revegetation measures all the way up to the edges. We have a full plant list as well as specifications for that area. In addition to the revegetation of that gray area, there was an area identified, I believe, by or suggested by the commission to be used as a mitigation area. So we kept that same area that you have established with the project team in earlier hearings, and we provided supplemental planting for that mitigation area to enhance those dune colonies that are currently there and to keep them going. In addition to that, our plan notes are fairly extensive in terms of providing provisions for management of any small incursions of state-listed invasive or non-native vegetation, as well as providing a temporary irrigation system that would be above ground for all of these new restoration and mitigation plantings that would then be removed after those plants are fully established. They just need a little bit of help getting acclimated to those conditions. We also provide oversight notes for the restoration and mitigation work to be either completed or overseen by a certified ecological restoration practitioner. This is something that is very common in our work. We also provide provision for 3 years of annual monitoring reports to be submitted to the Commission at the end of October. The reason we do it at the end of October is because we like to see the projects come through an entire growing season before giving you an assessment of what happened that growing season, so to speak, rather than submitting them in spring when nothing has happened through the winter. So we have provision for that in our plan, and in effort to keep my presentation short, I'm happy to answer any questions you might have about it.
Thank you. Before we move on to discussion, I wanted to find out if there's any public comment on this filing first. Hi, sir. Could you state your name and address for the record, please?
Andy McDonald, 298 Phillips Road. Madam Chair and board members. I've come to all the meetings about this situation of 295 and 297 Phillips, and we have yet to hear how much, if any, kind of encroachment there's going to be on the vacant virgin dune that's in question on these plans. And tonight, quite honestly, all I'm hearing is smoke and mirrors around the issue. We're not really getting any answers to the questions that you've been asking for over the last couple of meetings and mandating that the information be gotten to you. I don't hear any of that information being given to you. That in and of itself, I would imagine, would be very concerning. Furthermore, the virgin beachfront dune, lot 297, it's grown naturally over the last 50 years, both in height by at least 20 feet and in depth by at least 50 feet towards the water. This dune acts as a natural buffer, a natural barrier that protects our beach, protects our street and our homeowners and residents from nor'easters, the occasional hurricane that comes in, and any bad weather that occurs out there. It gives us the protection that we need. If you need to see how fragile the beach is, I realize we're talking about 295 and 297, but I would implore the board to go up the street about a quarter mile where the homeowners up there are desperately trying to keep the beach intact, keep the sand intact by putting pylons into the beach, by filling in riprap, and even using conveyor belts to bring sand and dump it onto the beach because it keeps getting taken away. The reason is they don't have a barrier dune in front of their properties to protect the beach that they have. If this dune gets disturbed, we're going to lose all of the protection that we've ever had. The bottom line is we implore you to be the Conservation Commission to conserve, preserve, and protect the dune that is there. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much. Anyone else present? Okay. There are several letters that I need to read into the record. The first one is from Andy and Patty McDonald at 298. That's the one you just, okay, thank you. Okay, the next one is from Lisa Mabberty. Doesn't say her address. Yeah, it doesn't give her address here. 290, nope, doesn't give her address. She says, good morning, we are opposed to the building on the vacant lot at 297 Phillips Road. Why does this have to move? There are at least 8 vacant lots on Phillips Road. We know of 4 were turned down for building. Why is this lot different? Allowing this building to encroach onto the vacant lot is setting a precedence. This house should conform to the existing lot. I said it before, we have no control over Mother Nature. The truck's constantly driving over the grass and sand along the road. We ask that you please make the right decision. Thank you for your time. The next letter is from Joan Duran at 296 Phillips Road. Attention Conservation Commission, I've attended all of the conservation's meetings concerning the rebuild of the home on lot 295 Phillips Road. That is in question of encroachment onto lot 297. Lot 297 has been and hopefully will remain a natural resource as all the other virgin vacant lots along Phillips Road, which have been deemed unbuildable for structure since the early 1980s. Lot 297 is not any different than the other vacant lots. An exception should not be allowed. Prior to the June 1st meeting, the applicant was asked by the Conservation Commission to adjust their proposed home plans to comply to the boundaries of just lot 295. Applicants say they will need time to make the adjustments. However, at the June 1st meeting, there was no mention of that adjustment and revised plans were not presented. Why was this issue overlooked? Lot 297 should not be altered in any way and stay within the natural landscape. Should encroachment be allowed, then what will stop development onto the other vacant lots? What's allowed for one should be allowed for all to hold consistency. I don't think we want to see this happen to this beautiful coastal area. I do believe the goal of the Conservation Commission is to preserve our natural environment. Consistency should be held as within the past when others applied to build on their lots and have been denied. There should not be an exception in this case. New large homes have recently been built on Phillips Road on the same size lot as 295, staying within the boundary on that one lot without issue. It is critical that the new construction stays within those boundaries to preserve our natural resources and be consistent with the moratorium that was set by the town of Sandwich in the 80s. Lot 297 is a natural coastal buffer that I have seen in the last 40 years grow to at least 15 to 20 feet in height and 50 feet toward the ocean side. It would be sinful to see this kind of growth altered in any way. This coastal dune is a natural barrier that protects Phillips Road and homes from coastal storms. To disturb the natural vegetation that has taken years to develop would be for all, especially for the wildlife. Phillips Road is a fragile area that needs environmental protections, just so it won't be eroded like other Sandwich beaches. The homeowner can build their beautiful home without encroaching upon any portion of the unbuildable lot 297. To allow expansion onto lot 297 would not be in keeping with the mission of the Conservation Commission goals. I hope you're giving this issue serious thought and the rebuttal it could cause if allowed to encroach onto lot 297. I hope the Conservation Commission doesn't lose sight of their goals to preserve and protect the natural environment. Concerned about Joan Duran. Okay, now I'll open it up for the commissioners to have, if they have any questions. I think that will come in our questions, I would imagine, at least in mine. I'll be addressing some of those.
Hillary Fogliak. Now that you guys are approaching this removal of the building and installation from a different angle, from coming inside the footprint, can the limit of work be shrunk? So less disturbance of the dune?
It was reduced, that wasn't actually mentioned, but Mark can tell you the square footage, but we already actually brought in the limits of work to reflect the fact that the crane can stay inside the footprint.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
How much it was, I think it was,
I'll let Mark address that, how the limit of work changed.
Actually, I didn't measure this, I'm not certain, but I know it was squared off before and it's not now.
Pulled in here, here.
It was pulled in here and here. So the whole idea was the new way of doing this, it depends on how far the crane can reach. So all of the pile, if he's sitting in this footprint, we're assuming he can get all the way over here. And Brian, the builder's been asked to check this with the crane operator. So that's why we were able to reduce the work limit in here because of the radius of the crane.
do you have it in front of you? How much is it now? Is it 10 feet, 5 feet, 15?
Is there somewhere to speak up when you're not near the mic? I'm sorry. It's this corner. So whatever's not here, that's the area that's been gained back, or that's where the work limit's been reduced.
So is it 20
So is it 20 feet?
from
Right.
the building out?
This is 15.
15 feet, 15 feet on all sides, with the exception of the corners that have been cut.
Hadn't you at one point gone down to a 10-foot work limit?
I don't think so. I'd have to look at the other. I'd have to look at the other projects. I'm not certain at this point. Now, certainly, using the crane is a new way of doing this, and we feel that it will reduce the work limit. If we don't need that much, they won't use that much. Because you figure the crane only has to be where the piles are driven, not where the deck is, well, unless the deck is supported by a pile. The crane only has to be located or be able to reach where the piles are driven. You still need a certain amount of room around the house just to set scaffolding and for shingles and things like that. So we're leaving it a bit conservative because we're not exactly certain where the crane, how much room the crane is going to need once the foundation is gone. However, I guarantee you that if we don't need to use that portion of the work limit, it won't be used. So it'll be kept certainly no more than this, which is consistent with other projects, but less if we can.
Any other questions, guys?
Could I just further address that too? So I just want to make sure that it was clear. Mark said that the client was going to contact the crane. He did do that. And so the work limit that you see there takes into account that the crane can reach all of the pier pilings that it needs to reach. And then Jen just whispered in my ear, she had a good idea that if after the crane is done, the agent maybe could meet on site and we could pull the work limit in once the crane's done because less room will be needed once the construction is underway. So that's
How much
something.
damage do you think this crane is going to do to the undisturbed area?
Not much at all, because what the idea that Sterling kind of came up with, which is, I'm going to use it in my lay person's terms. So as he said, the house will be destroyed from the roadside. The first idea was to just take it all out, but it's going to be taken out from the roadside so the crane can then get in and stand on the concrete floor that's in the current house. And then the crane's going to use that foundation as a base of operations and extend out and put the pilings where they need to be. And then my metaphor is, and then it's kind of like painting yourself out of a room. It's going to pull back. Then they're going to pull up that concrete, and then the crane will be able to put the pilings in the area where the house is currently from the driveway and from the road. So the crane won't have to go all over the property. So again, the limit of work was in fact pulled back already.
Okay.
So.
This is Elizabeth DeMello. It's in here on page 12 of 17 that was just submitted by you on 7/12 that says it's a 15-foot work limit.
Right. And
And I did write that, the protocol for the crane, I did update that in the narrative, if you saw that.
Yep.
right.
Okay, on a question from the public was, how far now is the proposed house crossing into the new lot?
include the deck? Because it looks like it would be.
Yeah, I think it does. Easy to meet.
Okay.
Seems like it would be more than 10 based on the
Like
scale.
15?
Yeah, closer to 15 maybe based on the scale that you provided on your drawings.
20 scale, the foundation is 8 feet, and when you get, and then the deck, that's this here. Is that,
Walkway.
and then the deck is like 24.
Wait, that's not right, Mark.
That's not right.
Can't be right.
How far are we encroaching into
Yeah, here's
the,
this is the merged.
the eastern part? Yeah. This is the merged line right here.
Yes, we see that on the drawing.
Okay. And so the building itself is extending all of about 8 feet onto what has been the
297.
portion of the lot.
I'm using the mitigation line. This is the deck line. Sorry. 12.
Total.
So 8 and 12.
8 and 4.
8 and 4 is 12.
Total of 12.
Mark, so the building itself is 8 feet over the line, and then there's a 4-foot walkway, basically. There's that.
Yep.
Have all the other things that we requested in the past in this drawing in terms of reduced deck size, elimination of those cutouts? I don't see them here, so I assume. So you didn't make any additional adjustments or changes
No,
that
we-
we had asked for before?
No, sir. We made all those changes from the first to the second hearing.
Okay. Roy Anderson, once again. So explain to me the 25-foot versus the 24.75. 24.7 is where the current house sits. And I would anticipate that that would be an acceptable point for the new house because it's currently at 24.
I understand where you're going, because that's pre-existing, like,
Right.
non-conforming. Brian can speak to that, but once you merge these lots, I'll let you say it.
No, you're correct. So I think we're all on board that the setbacks are 25 feet. The existing house is at 24.75. We just simply thought we'd put it at the setback. If you want that 1/4 of a foot, we can do that.
Good.
Yeah, I mean, if you want that.
That's what I want.
Okay, we can put it at the extent of the existing house because it's pre-existing.
Yes. Yep, just leave it at where the house starts now, should be where the new house starts.
Yes, okay. Yeah.
I'm sorry. Hillary Foglia.
Go ahead, Hillary.
I'm okay with 25 feet, just throwing that out there. So we don't need a plan revision. I mean, it's such as inches. So
Every inch
just to
matters.
keep it clear. And what's on the plan. Go ahead, Josh.
Madam Chair, I just wanted to ask something briefly, just as the agent. Josh Wrigley here. In hearing about the demolition protocol that you've outlined, I've seen instances before where the piles are driven prior to the area being backfilled, and that in some cases has prevented the area from attaining the same dune height and volume as would have been achieved if the sediment backfilling had taken place before the pile driving, just because the piles, of course, present a physical obstacle at that point. I just wanted to bring that up as a question / comment. It's not that I don't think that this could work, but that has been a concern in the past for other projects, and I just want the commission to be aware of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Josh.
through the chair, would it be, if I understand what you're saying you would prefer the dune profile to be filled in before the piles are driven, but if we're doing it this way, you can't necessarily do that. If you were able to come out after the foundation's removed, after all the piles are driven, that's when, I'm assuming that's when the dune profile is supposed to be restored to surrounding profile. Am I correct?
Well, usually we do several pre-construct meetings. The first is for the demolition of the house.
Mm-hmm.
When that comes down, we've got a hole. The hole is then backfilled. I'm notified. I see it. Usually at that time, too, the surveyor marks out the pilings for the new structure.
Okay.
Once I see that, that's the final pre-construct right there.
So because we're doing it a little bit differently, would you, it seems to me that if after the piles are driven and before any other work continues, if you had another subsequent inspection to inspect the dune profile, that's when you'd want it filled into the surrounding contours, because all the work is above that then, right? So they could drive the piles and then take out the foundation, drive the rest of the piles, do all the backfilling to restore the dune profile. You could inspect it before any work continues. Would that be fair? It puts more work on your plate, but
it doesn't really put more work on my plate. I guess the other thing, it can be more difficult, I think, for people to backfill at that point. So I don't think that it can't work, but it was just a concern that came to mind. But if the commission's fine with it, and if the applicant is willing to undergo those inspections and be true to that backfilling, then I certainly don't have an issue with it.
I would agree. I would want to make sure that staff has reviewed and approved any backfilling at the conclusion of any pile driving activity. And I mean, I understand there may be instances where it's more difficult, but even if they have to do this last bit of backfilling by hand or whatever,
I've seen what excavators are amazing machines. They can get really delicate with them. I'm confident, not if I was driving it, but I'm confident that that's not a problem. And it makes sense to restore the dune profile before you just start doing any work above it, because once you start doing that, you can't get in there to move anything around. If it's okay with you, I think that's reasonable and fair.
It's up to the board.
Yes.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah, okay with that too. I do have another question, just for clarification purposes and for the neighbors that are involved. Could you just summarize from what we asked, what was changed from then till now, from when you originally proposed till now? What would have been the changes and the modifications that you made from the first, from beginning to end? So the first, where we said, okay, we want take these, remove this. Do you have a summary of those things? Yeah. So to show what has been, what we asked and what has been done as a result of that.
Yeah, while Mark is looking for his notes, I can kind of say it conceptually, and then you can get the numbers. Yeah. So, because I also got brought into the team a little bit late, so my understanding was the house was 30 feet away from the side property line, extending over onto the vacant lot, which we know is merged. And then when I came involved, it had been moved back 25. You had asked that it be moved back to the house footprint, I think. And the applicant came back and he met you halfway, so to speak, and moved it back 5. We've now moved it another 5. So the whole house has been moved 10 feet to the east from when we first started. And we went to the 25-foot lot line because that's the setback. We just wanted to kind of keep it simple. And there is a point, too, that it complies with zoning. And so when I kind of looked at that 4 inches, I kind of thought there's some interest in complying with zoning for future uses. The limit of work has been reduced. The construction methodology has been changed to reduce impacts. There's a planting plan now that puts kind of much more detail on the concept that had been discussed. And I think Jen said this, but I want to reemphasize it. The planting plan is no net loss. There's no loss of vegetation from this project because everything that is disturbed is going to be replaced. So I don't think that was made clear or wasn't even said before, and that's on the record now.
Good. And on that note, I think that should be also noted that should be naturally occurring, that mitigation area should be allowed to be natural in perpetuity. So
I think that goes without saying in the sense that when the order of conditions, presumably, knock on wood, gets issued, any further activity would have to come back before you. Plus, the mitigation plan's not up anymore, but it's a condition of this project that the area around the work is revegetated and restored, plus the area that's currently natural but does not have kind of complete vegetation in certain areas. That's all going to be restored, or I shouldn't say restored because it's not damaged, it's going to be mitigated and enhanced, and that's a condition of your permit that it has to stay that way. So,
Okay.
yeah.
So we moved the house from encroaching from
10 feet back
10
from
feet
the
back.
original proposal.
to the point where it's now at the setback.
It's at the setback.
You couldn't go any further if you wanted to.
You could maybe go 4 more inches to take advantage of the non-conforming nature of the structure, but again, as I just kind of described, I thought it was clean to just do it at the 25.
Okay, and that's fine. So, and you took out the, like the spa area, and you took out, yeah, okay.
This is my letter from the second hearing of all the changes
Yes,
that were made.
okay.
Just read that.
No, that's okay. So we took out those, so we went from 30 to 20, and that's as far as you can go. The other changes were addressed. We have the mitigation plan, so would it be accurate to say that after the work is done, 297 will look similar to what it does now, with the exception of the encroachment of 20 feet?
12 feet.
Excuse me, 12 feet.
It's only encroaching 12 feet.
Sorry.
Yeah, and so what I would answer that question, Madam Chairman, is the following. There'll be a 12-foot encroachment that does not exist today, but qualitatively, the vacant land now will be better because it's going to be substantially enhanced by the planting plan that Jen presented. If you've been out to the site, I don't know if you've been there or not, but if you look at the vacant area of the lot, it's naturally vegetated. But like all dunes, there are parts that are bare, and there are parts that are, like, when you get up over the crest, the seagrass is very stable as you walk towards the ocean. But from the road perspective, there's kind of some bare spots. Those are all going to be planted per the plan. So you got a 12-foot encroachment, but you've got enhancement with mitigation.
Okay, well, I have a hard time with, it's going to be better than it was.
Oh,
That's okay.
Let me say one
It
other thing
is-
about that, too, because again, I'm the lawyer, I'm not the technical person here, so I kind of look at concepts and not details. But one of the concepts is that the regulations actually favor pile-supported structures. They don't like solid foundations in the current.
Where,
so
yeah.
the current house, I mean, because I heard some of the neighbors say, what's going to happen in a storm? If a bad storm hits the existing house, for lack of a better word, it's going to be bad because the waves will crash against the solid structure, it will destroy it, it will become storm-borne debris, et cetera. So part of what's going on with this project is you're removing a condition that is not preferred by the regulations, and you're replacing it with, albeit a bigger house, but one that is compliant with the regulations and it's pile supported. So overall, the environment, frankly, is going to be much better with this project than what currently exists. That's what I think.
Thank you for clarifying that for me.
Sure.
I appreciate that, Mr. Wall.
Any additional public comments? Did you close it?
Yeah. But I can reopen is public comment if necessary. Okay, quickly, please. Thank you.
Maureen Atkins, 360 Phillips Road. You asked what the neighbors wanted originally. What the neighbors wanted originally was the house to be left on the lot that the previous house occupied. We wanted the house to be exactly the distance from the lot line that the other houses have been, that have been new builds on the street, which is between 7 and 8 feet, not 15 feet. This house could have been put on that lot without touching that virgin dune. May I also add that those two lots, I guess, were conjoined because they were non-conforming. Has this been to land court to make that one big lot, or is that still two lots with 12 feet overhanging it? Thank you very much. I think these are things you should think of.
Thank you. Anyone else? I'm going to close
Typically, when you've got two lots. of
Sir,
adjacent
we're,
I'm sorry.
public comment is still open, and we're not going to have any crosstalk. Okay. Okay, I'm going to close public comment then. Okay. State your name and address for the record, please.
Jerry Atkins, 360 Phillips Road. I've spoken before this board before. I would support everything Mr. McDonald said, everything my wife said. And I would caution the board that they're making a dangerous precedence to allow these lots that are conjoined as a function of Massachusetts law to build on that portion of their now larger lot that is vacant, and to allow anything that may cause or further the erosion of a virgin dune if the members of the board would go and walk from the beginning of Phillips Road down in Bourne all the way down to the canal, you would see all the erosion damage that has been done on Phillips Road, and how many lots have been encroached upon and have been damaged by the waves and the ocean over the years, and some of the houses that have been damaged over the years. I think it's a very dangerous path to go down to allow this to be rebuilt on that portion of the lot which is now vacant.
Thank you, sir. Very much.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm now closing public comment. Commissioners, where are we at? Where are we
I think, even though I wasn't here, I reviewed the recordings and minutes from a prior meeting, and another commissioner had mentioned that this project fundamentally isn't a significant departure from something that we would approve if there was not this issue of the two lots being treated as one. I think that the changes that have been made represent given what's in front of us, the best application of this proposal, considering that it's not an option to move it toward the non-297 side in such an amount that would remove it from that lot completely. I think we're not really talking about completely decimating a virgin lot here. I think the impact has been minimized, and the ground impact is going to be limited to those piles, like any pile foundation home in a dune.
Okay.
Hillary Foglia, excuse me. I agree with Cam. I also appreciate the planting plan and the graphics. It's a lot easier to read the plan now, which definitely helps. And transplanting the rare plants is great. And I really, just to reiterate, we've come a long way from the first plan that was presented in front of us, and I appreciate the willingness of the applicant to kind of meet us as much as they have.
Thank you.
And I'll just add that it is my belief that the project in front of us is consistent with the regulations and the performance standards for this coastal dune.
Okay.
Elizabeth DeMello. I agree with everything everyone has said. I think we're gaining 2,000 square feet approximately of hardscape being removed, which is going to more than make up for losing 12 feet into that side. And it's consistent with everything that we've been approving that I've seen so far. So.
Okay, thank you. Roy?
Roy Anderson. I think the residents of Phillips Road have stated incredibly strong cases to the value of those lots. And I appreciate every single person that's come forward each and every time because that does help us make these adjustments and changes. I believe right now we're at the optimal level, unfortunately, but I think we're at the optimal level where all the conditions have been met, and the expectation is such that we've minimized the impact to the point where there's really nothing more that this commission can do.
Thank you, Roy. And I just wanted to say too, I know this has been a heated issue. It's been contested. There's a lot being stated about, the virgin dune and that type of thing. We have to go by what the regulations say. We can't just arbitrarily say, well, it's a virgin dune, so you can't. Legally, they can. It's their lot. So we're kind of bound by. I fundamentally agree with the residents, and I think it's a shame that that's happening. And as far as precedents go, we have to look at each filing on a case-by-case basis. We can't we can't say, well, this will set a precedent, so we can't look at, is it following the regulations? We have to look at each one separately and individually, and I think this one has. They've come back and they've with the mitigation, like Hillary said, they've done what we've asked them to do to the best of their abilities. So I just wanted to mention that as well.
To echo what Kim said, we try to look at each project based on the merits of the specific project in front of us. We don't have the ability to consider all of the possible future implications of a project on a resource area. We've discussed that at length before, so I think the merits of the project in front of us are consistent with something that we would approve.
Okay, that being said.
Okay, would you like a motion?
I'd like to take a motion.
I will make a motion to close and approve DEP file number SE66-1929 Brian Hebb, care of Shorefront Consulting, for the notice of intent for the raise and rebuild of a single-family home at Assessor's Map 95, parcels 3 and 4, located at 295 and 297 Phillips Road, Sandwich, Mass., with standard and special conditions as discussed at length.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I wish to abstain, Josh.
I'm sorry.
I wish to abstain. Thank you. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much for listening to all of us. We appreciate your time.
Sure.
I'm guessing if this ever happens again, you'll probably see the village.
Village.
But I've said this
The
before.
village.
Thank you for working with us. I mean,
Vice versa.
it's a mutual consent. So thanks for everything.
Thank you.
Elizabeth, can you pass back down the
Yes.
plans, please? Thank you very much.
I know. That's why I wanted to address it as much as possible. Our hands are tied,
We're figuring it out.
It is, I know.
If the TV says anything, I'll let you know. I think we're okay.
Right. That's what I wanted to say, but you can't say that if they don't, Okay. All right. Okay, I'd like to open DEP file number SE66-1947, Cheryl Crowell, care of Down Cape Engineering, notice of intent for a proposed new single-family home at map 57, parcel 20, located at 40 Leonard Road, East Sandwich. Hi again.
Good evening again, Chair and members of the Commission. For the record, my name is Dan Ojala. I'm a civil engineer and land surveyor with Down Cape Engineering in Yarmouthport. Attorney Paul Whiteman, who's very familiar with the case over the years, is with us as well. And Cheryl Kroll, the beneficiary of the trust, 56 Leonard Road Nominee Trust, who controls the property, is also present if you have any questions of the owner. Cheryl and her former husband have owned the lot since it was just about constructed in early 1970s, paid the taxes all these years. The story I think Mike Wyman told me was that his kids wanted to go to Barnstable High School, not Sandwich, so he never built on this lot. But had he done, we wouldn't be here. But here we are. It's been a vacant lot in his family for all these years. We did go through a pretty extensive process of getting this permitted before. The lot, interestingly, even made a footnote 15 in the CZM manual that it's a kind of a precedent-setting case. It's one of those ones that's a little bit tricky to determine whether it's a dune or not, and you're looking at the sand veneer and whether it's significant to the act, and also, which portions are significant and not. So very thoroughly vetted project. I don't see any abutters here present, but formally there was some robust opposition. We went through all the appeals, and it's our understanding they've generally understand that it is what it is. They're not objection at this time, but of course I will let them speak for themselves, and they have every ability to appeal again, so they wished. So here we are. It's previous SE 66-1061 except for the lack of, it's very unfortunate, Cheryl forgot to extend a portion of the permit. This thing was alive until 2020. It's on the market now. So I'd like to sell the lot out of the family finally and get a little bit of capital back for it. The extension was good with the Permit Extension Act through 3/5 of 2020, but a mistake was made in the notice of non-significance that was issued by a superseding order. This time you guys will be asked to issue the same findings. Wasn't extended, and so therefore the septic permit, which hinged on that notice of non-significance, Dave Mason is comfortable with everything, except he'd like you to reissue the notice of non-significance so the permit for the septic system also becomes valid. So, long way of saying, except for a little bit of paperwork, we wouldn't be before you. This project has been vetted by the best professionals in the business. It was thoroughly, again, almost precedent-setting decisions were made. Jim Melhala, who eventually went up to the top of the DP chain, personally helped with the notice of non-significance, and it reads in part, I think the significant part is that the area where we're talking about is approximately 800 feet from Cape Cod Bay on a shoreline exhibiting long-term accretion, so as opposed to others, we're actually steady or gaining a little bit. And the dune's vegetative cover is undergoing plant succession leading to a stable maritime community forest. I transposed two words, but stable maritime forest community. As a result, the coastal dune in this area and where he was talking about is the same area that we're looking at on the plan here. There was an older flood zone line that was halfway through the lot. But what he's specifically speaking to is that's more of a demarcation area that I think the principle is it's undergoing plant succession leading to a stable maritime forest community. And so it doesn't play a significant role in storm damage prevention or flood control and is not significant to the interest of the Act. So since he issued that about 20 years ago, the sea level has risen about 1.5 inches, but it's not, I think, significant change. And again, this permit was extended. Here's an aerial photograph that shows, how well vegetated the site is. Some of the test hole areas are visible in that. If you look at the Google Earth, it's even greener, and you can see the heavy forest. This is north is up, and all this forest is north of the site, blocking any wind and waves, and so it's a still water flood zone. It's not one of these where you've got velocity. Now, the crux of the matter is, even though there was great debate, it was decided by Jim Malhala eventually that there was a little bit of enough veneer there that it was a coastal dune, the lot was a coastal dune, but it was determined the sections we were working in were not significant to the Act, and therefore a permit was issued. The Board of Health issued their variance. It was negotiated with the Board of Health that if a notice of non-significance was issued, that they would be able to issue for a septic permit on new construction. Again, Wyman having owned the lot since 1971, now coming up to 50 years. And I would bear, I know the hour is late, but let me just hit a few highlights here. Extension permit expired in 2020. The site has a long history of permitting back to 85. The final order was issued in 11. Extension permit to 17 expired in 20 for personal reasons. The work wasn't done. The scope and details have not changed, so it's functionally an identical project to what was already approved. So we don't have to worry about us, sneaking in a bigger house or making any significant changes to the site. Of note, a notification of non-significance, and I should say NHESP and the Division of Marine Fisheries both have no comment. It's fine with them. DEP issued the SE number, no comment, so we're pleased to see that. They don't want to dredge up any of these prior issues. So that I was pleased to see that. That spoke, I think, some volumes towards the reasonableness of this small proposal. The notification of non-significance was issued in 2010 by the DPE that the dune area landward of what was then the 100-year flood elevation 11, did not play a significant role in storm damage prevention and flood control, and is not significant in the interest of the Act. So now we're asking for you to make a finding that the same project could proceed. The flood zone did change. I want to be very upfront about that. Again, the sea levels come up this much. The modeling after Superstorm Sandy changed significantly. The preliminary FEMA maps were out. There was going to be no change. All of a sudden, Sandy happened, and FEMA got surprised because there was, in that particular case, a hurricane that went inland and flooded over the old 100-year flood. So the consultants ratcheted up their models and modeled a higher storm, and all of a sudden they reissued all the maps, and they were 2 to 3 foot higher. So it has come a little higher. The good news on this one, though, is it's still the highest floodwaters wouldn't go over the top of the leaching. It's right there at 14. So it's a very similar situation to before. And if you looked at the end of the document, there's a stretch where it shows this huge 40-foot frontal dune out on the bay, stable, some beautiful dune forms coming in. We're not going to get rollers breaking into this area. It'll be still water flooding, very light, and the septic system will be completely protected. We are allowed or required to go on open piles whenever we're within a coastal dune, so we're doing that. We're treading very lightly. The work limit line is tight around the little bit of a mounded septic, which is in the east end of the site, and tight around the house. We will maintain that. We did stake out about 1.5 years ago the house and garage, so if anybody went out there, you'd see those stakes. We worked with Josh's office to trim some trees at the turnaround so the fire truck can turn around. We met with the fire department. We do need to widen the drive a bit and stabilize the surface. So in the very lower left corner, there was an addendum to the last plan, which I just incorporated onto the sheet of this to make it a one-sheet plan that describes the path for the fire truck there.
We do have the narrative.
Yeah, and I don't. Well, that's excellent. So, and I don't mean to belabor the point. And if the crux of the project is you have a good understanding, I can certainly just skip to the conclusion. But we do feel that the project meets the performance standards under the Act. This is a fresh filing, so you do look at it. But I would think that you could give judicial notice to the fact that this went through and was very, very carefully vetted on appeal, and DEP issued the notice of non-significance. So would respectfully ask that you reissue that. The narrative goes over carefully our rationale for that. We'd respectfully ask to not send it to another consultant. I think this has been very well vetted, and it will be just a nice little 3-bedroom home on piles with a tight work limit line at the end of Leonard Road, and you'll have 800 to 1,000 feet of beautiful protective buffer before the Cape Cod Bay to our north.
Thank you so
I'd
much.
be glad to answer any questions if you
Thank you.
have them.
And Commissioners, is there any public comment for this filing? Okay, public comment is closed. Commissioners, do you have any questions for Dan?
Hillary, I do have a question. So, just so I'm understanding correctly, you're here because you for one reason or another didn't file for an extension.
Correct, yeah. Assuming it would have been granted, it would simply have been an extension, and then everything would be all set. What happened was we did request an extension through this commission. Paul could explain better. But
what happened was Cheryl, I actually came out of retirement for this case. This started in 1999. I've since moved on to working in conservation, been an agent in a couple of towns, and doing what I love to do. But Cheryl called, and basically what happened was Cheryl sent a letter to this commission. Now, we had a DEP superseding order, so she needed to send a letter to DEP. She sent it to this commission thinking that would approve both the DEP order and the local bylaw. It only extended the local bylaw. We talked to Dave DeCanto. He said, basically, why don't you refile the whole thing all over again? We agreed. So technically, it was sort of a procedural error that was made. We lost contact with one another, and it's as simple as that, really. It was just a mistake that was made. Had she sent that letter to DEP, they would have extended it. We wouldn't even be here.
And this doesn't fall under the COVID Extension Act?
The Governor's Extension Act, yeah, it went on for 20 years. We went to DEP, we litigated the case. They found that it was a dune. I'm going to be brief. At that time, it was difficult to tell where the landward edge of the coastal dune was. As you know, it's a simple definition. Hill Ridge.
I'm sorry, I think we
Well,
understand.
just a
why-
date, yeah.
Oh, the date?
Yeah, I mean, it was extended to 3/5/20, but that was only portion of it, was it? Or the notice of non-significance expired? There was two aspects to it too, right?
It expired 5 days before permit tolling would have
Right,
had an effect.
yeah.
Okay,
But
yeah.
even that wouldn't have.
What I was trying to say, the reason it went on so long is because the Governor's Extension Acts kicked in, there were 2 of them, plus you get those on top of the extension period time, and that's why you went to 2 decades.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, but, yeah. and
Josh,
it-
did you have any,
Answer my question.
I think, well, he said it was 5 days, right?
But there were some extenuating circumstances, but in any event, we're here now to just to re-up them, and we probably could use the fresh 3 years anyway, you know, because it's a tough lot, we're trying to market it and get the right person in there that likes nature and doesn't want a big lawn, you know, it's a very native and natural site.
Josh, did you have any comments on this filing? Based on the history?
Well, I think Dan and Paul have described it, you know, pretty accurately here. As I've come to know it, there is this issue with the SOC expiring and the bylaw actually being extended. So in order to keep it as tidy as possible, you know, you have a new notice of intent in front of you. So going back a ways, when this had first been approved under the SOC, Jim Mahala, who was the head of Wetlands and Waterways, had issued the notification of non-significance after significant review of the resource area, after consideration of the plant communities that live there and of the sediments that can be found there as well. And it was his assessment that the resource area under 310 CMR was not providing the functions that are listed under 1028 for coastal dune. And that's how the notification of non-significance came about. So where the commission finds itself now is considering the same filing, essentially, and would have to reissue a notification of non-significance if it approves the final. Board of Health, based on that notification before, had then changed its regulations to allow for a septic system to be built there. Is that correct?
Yeah, if it's in an area that was of non-significance.
2005.
We were in a conference with the judge. He asked us to talk things over. The town's attorney said, let me go back and talk to the Board of Health. They came back and amended it in 2005 to say that you could have a septic system in Dune as long as you had a notice of non-significance from DEP saying that the area wasn't playing a role in storm damage prevention. That's what happened.
Is there, so what you're requesting is actually to get another letter of insignificance from?
There's a form for it, and I believe you have to make a written finding under the regulations. Josh, is that right? Yeah.
On Form 6, it does require that.
So in your findings, you would just make that finding that that it's not playing a role in storm damage prevention, flood control, and then sign the notice of non-significance. There's a specific form for it, yes, in the DEP forms.
Yeah, and we're not saying it doesn't play any role, it's just not a significant role. So would the floodwaters come in and come close? Yes. You know, they'd inundate some portions, but we're at the perimeter of an 800-plus foot flood zone with massive dunes out front, and it would be our position that it's a very reasonable position that Jim Mulholland took, and given that were it not for the adjustments by the consultants to FEMA, we would be identical flood zone, and we feel that you could make that finding safely.
Right. Thank you. Commissioners?
Yeah, just a question again to Josh. Roy Anderson. So most of these unbuilt lots are considered unbuildable. Why is this considered buildable?
This is a special circumstance where it had the notification of non-significance. Because the coastal dune in this instance lies probably half a mile, I would say, from the primary frontal dune and the velocity zone, which is where the commission typically considers projects of this nature. In those areas, if you had an undeveloped lot on Phillips Road or on Saltmarsh Road or on North Shore Boulevard, in those coastal dune barrier beach areas, a new septic system would be prohibited. Those are fully functioning dunes. I don't think the commission or anyone at DEP would probably wish to issue a notification of non-significance for a dune like that.
Sure.
But in this area, and it may be good for the commission to do a site visit to the site to actually see for itself what it looks like prior to making a decision. In this area, it is far enough removed, and I think the applicant here has made that case, that it's no longer serving those purposes of storm damage prevention because of its landward placement behind the primary frontal dune there. So this is really, what is it, secondary? Is that the...
Yeah, it was considered a secondary phasing into a maritime forest community, so it's borderline even a dune. But to the extent that it's considered a dune, we'll concede that.
And is this area, again, Roy Anderson, is this area eroding over time, or has it actually been building over the last 20 years?
I think
Stable.
over the last 20 years, it's probably continued to lose its dunal characteristics and become more and more, indicative of upland, forest there. There's a thin veneer of sand. You have some, oaks around, white oaks, raspberry. I saw sumac, Japanese black pine, but you don't see a lot of the other species like japonica, beach plum, Ammophila, that would characterize the type of dune that you're normally considering projects in.
Roy, is that?
That's wonderful, thank you.
And the shoreline is steady and accreting 1,000 feet away or so, so that's the other good part of it.
I would welcome a
I just
visit.
have about 10 minutes worth of comments I'd like to make.
Okay, go ahead. Yeah.
I would be comfortable approving this.
Okay.
I agree.
Okay. Hillary, you said that your question wasn't answered. I want to make sure that you're, okay.
I do think that this is kind of before us due to a technicality.
A procedural glitch.
And I think it's been gone over a lot in the past, and I think it's been well vetted, and we should close it.
Yes, Josh.
Madam Chair, one final comment, which is just that if the commission is thinking about closing and approving tonight, I did not have a chance to fill out Form 6, and I noticed on Form 6 also that it does say that if the notification of non-significance is made, then an order of conditions shall not be issued. So I would want to just review again Mahala's language and also the legality of issuing that notification while also issuing an order of conditions that needs to be complied with. I'm sure this is something that you can see some potential complications with, and I just want to make sure that before the commission signs anything that it's done properly.
Sure.
What I would suggest, just to throw out there, is why don't we issue a notice of non-significance over the portions containing the septic system? Then we still need an order for the rest of it. And so then you can have your cake and eat it too.
Well, that's a thought.
DP did issue an order with the notice, but they're separate. They were separate.
So a lot of times, I think the problem is, Josh, is that when you get a notice of non-significance, you're like, oh, I'm off the hook, I don't even have to file anything. In this case, it's a little bit more complicated than that.
Yeah.
So if we could parse it out that way and have the septic areas specifically get your notice of non-significance, the remainder obviously needs an order to proceed.
Maybe that's a solution. So my suggestion here would be, if the applicant is, amenable to possibly continuing to the August 3rd meeting, then that would give me a chance to draw up the language for Form 6, allow the commission to review that, and then at that point, if it was the commission's wish, the representative and council wouldn't even need to show up at that point. Or
We
you
could
show
communicate
up.
beforehand, and if there was going to be open communication, we'd be happy to be here. If it seems administrative, we'll gladly stay home.
That sounds reasonable.
Yeah, that's reasonable to me.
And you guys are okay with that?
Hey, it is what we really appreciate you working with us, yes,
Okay.
100%.
Okay.
Okay.
I'll take a motion.
I will make a motion to continue DEP file number SE 66-1947, Cheryl Kroll, care of Downstate Engineering, for the notice of intent for a proposed new single-family home at map 57, parcel 20, located at 40 Leonard Road, East Sandwich, Mass, to the August 3rd, 2020 meeting of the Sandwich Conservation Commission.
Roy Anderson, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Thank you, guys.
Thank you
so
very
much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for waiting. Okay, we have some emergency certifications. Josh, we have EC 22-3322 Liberty Street septic repair.
Yes, Madam Chair, this was a failed septic system that was worthy of immediate repair. I signed off on it per usual and have the emergency cert that the commission needs to ratify at the next available meeting right here.
As in now.
So you can vote on it and I'll send this down.
Okay, great. I'll take a motion on that.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve emergency certification EC 22-33 for septic repair at 22 Liberty Street.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Okay, then now we have extensions for DEP file number SE 66-1682, David and Cheryl Wamister, care of Vaccaro Environmental Consulting, for an after-the-fact notice of intent for beach nourishment at Assessor's Map 77, Parcel 81, located at 80 Roos Road in Sandwich. You get on that one, Josh?
Yep, this is an extension for a beach nourishment project. So, as per usual on the beaches, people like to keep these open.
Fair enough. So, if it's okay, take a motion on that one.
I'll make a motion to approve the extension to original filing DP number SE 66-1682, David and Cheryl Wamster, care of Vaccaro Environmental Consulting, for the notice of intent for beach nourishment at Assessor's Map. Hold on, staff has
A number of years too.
Oh, for how long is it?
Oh, 3 years.
I'll amend that to approve the extension for 3 years for SE 66-1682 for beach renourishment at Assessor's Map 77, Parcel 81, located at 80 Roos Road.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so moved.
I'm sorry.
okay.
Who did the motion for the emergency cert?
Pam did, and Elizabeth did the second.
Okay, great, thank you very much.
Okay, now for enforcement, 56 North Shore Boulevard, replanting where the patio was removed. What happened there?
I was meaning to get out there to take a look at it, and I didn't get a chance to, unfortunately. Wayne McMahon sent photos of where it had been just seeded, and that's good. I do know that they did remove the whole patio.
Okay.
And the stone underneath and the stone dust. So I will try to take a look out there prior to the August 3rd meeting and be able to report something back to the commission.
We need to continue, can make a motion to continue?
Sure, yeah. We'll put that on the August 3rd agenda. Actually, I don't even know if you need a motion for that.
I don't think
Just
so
because
either.
no
This
action
is an
is being
enforcement, yeah.
taken.
Okay.
And
then the review of the Conservation Commission enforcements.
I have to apologize because I had the spreadsheet and then I forgot to bring it with me. So I know Roy had asked specifically about this, so I'm sorry. I forgot. I forgot to put it on the last agenda as well.
As long as over time we move in that direction, that's
What
fine.
I'll do is because it's a spreadsheet, I'll email it to everyone, and then you can look at it. Things are in varying states on it, but we do have some instances of compliance where, for instance, 6 Pier Veneer Drive cleaned up the styrofoam recently. I saw the property owner at 216 North Shore Boulevard, and he said he's calling contractors to try and remove that stone that is in his driveway, so that's good. I just spoke with Mickey Bent on the phone today at 159 North Shore Boulevard to let him know that he still has to file. So things are, continuing to move forward.
So Roy Anderson here, just the hope here is, as we are meant to manage this or support this effort, we want to be supportive of what you're trying to accomplish. So it'd just be good that we are aware of all of these and then have a discussion as to any actions we should take as a commission. And that's just where I just think that's efficient and effective and appropriate. That's my point.
I agree. I think it's good for the commission to be aware of what is taking place.
And all the work that you're doing, which we appreciate.
An inordinate amount.
But I apologize, because I had meant to bring that, and it just slipped my mind when I left the office.
It's okay.
And just very quickly, I know Roy had made a request to put on commission policies and the mission statement for the August agendas, so those will be on for August.
Great.
Minimally that we discuss and say, when do we want to attack those things that we started a year ago and haven't brought to closure? So that's just to bring it up for discussion.
The regulations too, the regs and the mission.
The mission statement, which I believe we started talking about a year ago, which has an awful lot of items that we don't do, and my issue is either we eliminate those from the mission statement or we actually do something about it. And the policies and regulations, a number of things were brought forward and then we kind of stopped.
Yeah.
And what we want to do is just like, how do we bring those to closure? Because they have to go in front of the town meeting. Is that correct, Josh, to make changes?
We were pretty far along.
We were very
For
far
our
along.
regulations?
Yes.
No.
No, okay, so whatever they need to do
You
so
would
that we
approve the
can bring them
changes
to
here.
closure. And that's fine. They were there, we spent a lot of time on it. I just want to bring it to
Schedule another
closure.
work meeting to
That's
do,
right.
to go over that. I agree. Because we were close,
That's the idea. We were close and then
Yeah.
12 months went by.
Right. All of a sudden, it's a year plus later. Right. So maybe we can discuss that on, at August 3rd if we're not.
And minimally to say, it's up, when do we want to discuss it, and then make
Make
it
a date.
a date. Right, that's it.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. Anything else on that issue?
Just one on another comment that was made, that on our website, all except 3 of us are expired, and I was just wondering if that was just a clerical issue. Is that a
I'll take a look.
problem?
I'll take a look.
Are we all not supposed to be voting here?
I'll take a look.
Okay.
I did do my paperwork and everything today.
Yeah, me
So
too.
I am able to vote.
Yep. I got sworn in today too.
Oh,
I'll take a look.
Yeah.
okay.
Okay. So moving on, the minutes for June 15th, 2022 looked good to me. If anyone had any visions on June 15th.
I make a motion to accept the June 15th, 2022 minutes as presented.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No.
Abstain.
Oh, abstain. Cam is abstaining.
So I make a motion to accept the July 6th.
Wait. I have something on July 6th. Sorry. Lily is not mentioned at all, so it has members present and then members absent, but Lily's not on it.
She was absent. She was
Yeah, she was.
Yeah.
But she's not mentioned as absent. I don't know if that's.
Oh, she's not? Oh,
She's not present nor absent.
Nor absent, right, so she just vanished.
Okay, then I will make that change.
Can we make
and
a
then
okay.
We'll bring those minutes back at the August 3rd meeting.
You can't approve it with that noted change?
No. You really shouldn't.
All right.
Yeah.
That's fine. Okay, bring it back.
They'll come back August 3rd.
Okay, all right.
So, Lily absent.
So if there's nothing else, okay, then I'm going to make a motion that we close the July 6th meeting, July 20th, I just thinking of the 6th, meeting of the Conservation Commission at 8:58 PM. All in favor, or 72nd, okay, all in favor.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, I didn't think we'd get any.
You said 8:38?
8:58.
8:58.
Yeah.
And then, Kim, who was your second? Cam, okay. And then
When's the door?
Roy made the motion for the minutes, and who seconded?
Elizabeth, I think.
Elizabeth, okay, great.
Good work.
Good work, guys. I agree.
I'm surprised that we got through.
Great, good meeting.
I know,
Tip
it was.
meeting.